Yeah, it's probably best if you don't ask. So I saw Bark from Obscure Mics try this out, and from what I could tell, he didn't like it. So I was like, I'll probably hate it too. I gotta try that out. And I should point out, for our American friends, you guys get the best deal on this microphone with it only being $129. But for the rest of us, there seems to be a premium on this microphone considering it cost me over $200 Canadian with taxes in, and that's a lot of money. So that is the lens I'll be using to judge this microphone. So consider that when deciding to spend your own money. Now, this thing is another SM7B clone mic. It's pretty sturdy feeling, all metal body and a yoke system. Clown nose is also very SM7B-esque, even how it detaches and especially how it looks underneath. It's an XLR-only microphone, and yes, that's pretty much it. I should also point out that the capsule is quite generic, and obviously there's a capsule distributor that is selling these off at a discount somewhere, as even Bark mentioned that this is the exact same capsule that was on a T-Bone mic. By the way, if you didn't get that reference, you need to watch my video on the T-Bone SC400 right up here. Now, this is a dynamic cardioid microphone. It's 50 hertz to 15 kilohertz, a sensitivity of neg 57 dB, which I'm guessing is dBV per Pascal. And for y'all out there with the cheap boom arms, this thing weighs 1.5 pounds, and really, that's about it. Nothing else to report. Now let's take a look at the off-axis rejection of the Vocaster Dm14V. Right now I'm speaking directly into the front of the capsule from about 2 inches away. Now I'm speaking into the side of the capsule from approximately 2 inches away. And now, like an idiot, I'm talking into the rear of the microphone. Who does that? Now for a plosive rejection test of the Vocaster Dm14V. I'm never going to get that name down. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. Now for the proximity effect test of the Vocaster Dm14V. This is me speaking about 2 inches off the front of the capsule. Now I'm directly on top of the capsule. 2 inches, directly on top. Now let's take a look at whether or not there's any resonant frequencies with the Vocaster Dm14V. Now we have the Vocaster Dm14V up against the standard, the SM58. This is the microphone that, frankly, all other microphones could kind of benchmark themselves up against. The best price to performance of really any microphone you could buy is this one, the SM58. And the Focusrite Vocaster Dm14V. Which one do you like as I go between them? Next up, we have the Vocaster Dm14V up against the Elgato Wave. And this is a relatively popular mic amongst gamers and stuff. People that are buying into the Elgato kind of ecosystem, if you will. And what do you think as I go between the two of them? This one being the Vocaster, this one being the Elgato. Now we have the Vocaster Dm14V up against the Dynacaster DC-M6, one of the Dynacaster microphones from SE. And as I go back and forth between them, which one do you like? Now, this one actually has a dynamite switch on the back. This one does not. This one is about as sensitive. It's somewhere in between the sensitivity of an SM58 and an SM7B. So maybe that becomes part of your decision is gain control, whether or not you have enough clean gain to be able to drive a microphone like this Vocaster. Which one do you like as I go between the two of them? The SE DC-M6 or the Vocaster Dm14V? Now we have the Vocaster Dm14V up against the SE Dynacaster. Now, the SE Dynacaster, much like the DC-M6, has a dynamite switch in the back, which you can switch on, and you can actually get the preamp working for you so you can kind of boost up your signal, and you don't have to worry about gain issues. Which one do you like, though? Just on bass sound alone. This is set to flat, by the way, the Dynacaster. Which one do you like as I go between them? Now we have the SM7B up against the Dm14V. And you might be wondering why I'm putting a $400 microphone up against a $120 microphone. Well, my belief is if you're going to release a microphone that basically rips off all the concepts of a much better microphone, you're going to have to stand with some comparisons between the two. And this is the differential between the Vocaster Dm14V and the Shure SM7B. Which one do you like? Do you like the Vocaster Dm14V or the Shure SM7B? And I guess I should address a few of the things that Bark pointed out. and the for and against issues if I were able to stay impartial, which, by the way, I'm not. But just for some food for thought for anyone considering this microphone. Now, a lot of people get mad at the bigger and more expensive companies that seem to just price their gear really high, while companies like this are creating gear that is cheap, just like the SM7B should be. And that's where we get to the term mass-produced that Bark was talking about. And frankly, there's nothing wrong with mass production. It makes for cheaper components and possibly cheaper overall price in the end. But this isn't just about mass production, because even the SM58 is mass produced. But the issue is from the mass production of components, not the mic as a whole. You see, mics like the SM58 and SM7B are mass-produced, but with components that have years and millions of dollars of research and development behind it. There are engineers that work for these bigger companies to develop and refine these products over time. There are also companies like Lawton Audio, foreshadowing by the way, that are boutique, and also have actual scientists developing capsules and microphone designs that sound good. Again, even with those mics, there is a level of mass production happening, as they aren't forging the bodies of the mics in their own fires. But when you counter that with a company like Focusrite that does no research and development, does little design work other than ripping off the famous SM7B, it's almost like they assembled a microphone from random distributors sourced at the cheapest price possible, all to create a microphone that is in a lot of ways unremarkable, and then market that mic to people who do not understand audio gear for a profit. Yet all these people in my replies that are calling mics like the SM7B overpriced, even though the parts for this were not just snagged off the most affordable assembly line. And you wonder why I call those comments short-sighted. Let's start with the pros. It is a dynamic mic, always a plus, and the build quality on it's awesome. Not gonna lie. And finally, for the pros, I didn't find it a muddy mess, and it wasn't as shrill as the Wave DX. Now, as for the cons, well, it's coming into the market at a price point that is very competitive, at least in the US, and it isn't really standing out. I'll get into my thoughts on its specific mic-to-mic performance in a bit, but it's a touch underwhelming. And while it isn't as shrill as the Wave DX, I did find it rather harsh in the higher frequencies and a bit muddy and nasally at the same time. And finally, the low sensitivity on it might be an issue for some that use it for live or perhaps don't have whisper quiet preamps. Something to keep in mind, you will need some decent pre's to get a decent signal out of this. Now, all that said, it's not horrendous. The big problem is it didn't outperform any microphone around its price point with the exception of the Wave DX. The SM58 easily with the better sound and texture. The DCM6 I thought was less harsh in the higher frequencies. And of course, with that dynamite preamp, well, it's not even an argument. And well, as we climbed up the stack, the Dynacaster and the SM7B were no contests, as expected. So then where does this leave you? Well, if you're in the US and able to grab this for its list price of $129 and it meets your needs, sure. I would still recommend the SM58 over this every day of the week, but then I guess aesthetics are a thing. I get that. Do remember though, if you're ever looking to resell and recoup a few bucks off of it, the SM58 will far and away do better on the used market. So this thing loses a few points in that resale market. Now, if you aren't in the US though, and you're like me paying more than the exchange rate, don't buy this microphone. It's not worth the elevated price. You are much better off with the SE DCM6, or again, as mentioned, the SM58. What do you think though? Did you like how the Vocaster Dm14V stood up to the competition? Let me know down below.